Hey guys, we're gonna go over our domain notes today, a new set of notes. We're gonna try to make it super quick for you. Right here, this is a video that we're gonna watch tomorrow or on Monday in an Edpuzzle, but you can preview it if you prefer after we've gone over the notes. And these are some additional extension videos that are great to watch if you've got the time today. This one you're going to need to sign in. That's the info to sign in with. Our learning targets today are to look at the 3 different domains, so identify the difference between the bacteria, archaea, and eukarya domain, and to distinguish between sexual and asexual reproduction. Now, don't get too nervous. It's not anything very specific. So what we're looking at first is this idea of a domain. A domain, you may have heard of different kingdoms probably, like the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. The domain is the category above kingdom, so it's even more broad than kingdom. So here you can see that there are tons of different things in the domain eukarya. So we've got trees, mushrooms, we've got a little protist, and then we've got a whole set of different examples of different animals here. And then when you go down one, get a little bit more specific into the kingdoms, we lose these 3 organisms. So domain is the most broad category of taxonomy or classification, and it contains a large amount of different organisms. Every time you step down, so we have the different categories of classification go from domain to kingdom to phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Species is the most specific. If we are talking about an organism's scientific name, it includes its genus and species name. So a brown bear or a grizzly bear is its scientific name is Ursus arctos. Human scientific name is Homo sapien. But you guys really, as 6th graders, are just looking at the domain and kingdom categories. And today we're focusing on domains. So there are 3 domains: bacteria, eukarya, and archaea. Bacteria and archaea are kind of interesting or weird, I guess, in the fact that they only have 1 kingdom each. So they're both a domain and a kingdom altogether. However, scientists decided to separate these 2 out because structurally their cells are a little bit different. So bacteria has got 1 kingdom, and we went ahead and just called it the same name, bacteria. Archaea has 1 kingdom, archaea, and eukarya has those kingdoms that you're a little bit more familiar with. So plant kingdom, animal kingdom, fungi is a whole kingdom by itself, and protists, which is our probably most new eukaryotic kingdom. These are the bulk of our unicellular eukaryotes. All right, so let's look at our first kingdom, bacteria. Bacteria are everywhere. So they are inside your body, outside your body. They are on your desks and on the counters and on the floor and in the soil and in the water, everywhere. Some of them are really, really helpful. They help us digest our food. They help make different medicines and things like that. And some of them are really, really bad and can make you really, really sick. So good bacteria and bad bacteria. They are everywhere. Some of the ones that you may have heard of are Streptococcus bacteria. Some of the Streptococcus strains give you strep throat. E. coli is one that gives you food poisoning. And then there's good like lactobacillus that helps make yogurt and cheese, which is pretty cool. So different kinds of bacteria, they're everywhere. Very small and tiny. And right here is a cool little video on bacteria if you'd like to watch that as an extension today. Archaea is our next kingdom, also prokaryotes. Okay, so again, tiny unicellular organisms, very bacteria-like when looking at them, especially pictures like this one that are, let me see if I can move over, there we go. So you guys can see these kind of unicellular, small looking roundish creatures, right? The main thing that you guys as sixth graders need to be able to distinguish between bacteria and archaea is that almost all archaea are what we call extremophiles. Occasionally bacteria can be them too, but we're really just going to call bacteria our extremophile domain, okay? And extremophile just means that it's an organism that lives in extreme conditions. So here we have this hot spring and these really amazing, beautiful colors that are coming from that are due to the different bacteria or archaea that live in that spring. You can see here, this is Yellowstone. We've got little tourists kind of all in the background there, so how large this is. Here, I just kind of included this cool picture for you to come back and look at, and it gives you some different examples of all these extreme environments where different extremophiles can be found, many of which, or most of which, are members of the domain Archaea. And then we have our eukaryotes. And so eukaryotes all together, all eukaryotes fall under the the domain Eukarya. And we have 4 different kingdoms within that domain: plants, animals, fungi, and protists. And we're going to look at all the kingdoms a little bit more specifically on our next set of notes. We're just looking at the domain Eukarya as a group. And we've already looked at them really because the group is the same as the group that we looked at in our eukaryote and prokaryote notes, right? We know that they're all eukaryotic. We know that some of them are multicellular and some of them are unicellular. We're going to look at next set of notes is that some of them can make their own food, and that makes them autotrophs, and some of them can't, like us. We have to eat, and they're called heterotrophs. So we'll focus on those vocabulary words next unit. These vocabulary words are what we're focusing on this unit, and eukaryotes can produce both, some can produce sexually, some can produce asexually, and some can produce both ways. So we're going to look at that vocab and be able to distinguish between those two things. So asexual reproduction, what that means is that there is one parent and one parent makes a baby all by itself. It can either just split into 2, like the example up here, or it can just grow a new baby off of its body, and that baby can sometimes detach or stay attached. But basically what we're looking at is one organism making a genetic copy of itself. So they're like making little clone babies of themselves, okay? Sexual reproduction is not that way. Sexual reproduction has 2 parents. They combine their genetic information to make a new organism, and that new combination makes a new organism that's a completely different genetic set as either of the original parents, right? Because we have half the genetic information of one parent combining with half the genetic information of another parent, and that can combine in many, many different ways to make many different combinations for many, many different new organisms. And you'll find out, especially in 7th grade, that variety that's created is really good for the survival of a species. So that's really beneficial. It does take a little bit longer to create that genetically diverse offspring. And so the advantage of asexual reproduction is that organisms that reproduce asexually can reproduce a lot more quickly. And that also is beneficial for organisms that are really small, like bacteria and archaea. So they can make lots of copies of themselves really, really fast, and that's how they survive. So when we're looking at our different domains and how they reproduce, archaea and bacteria are asexual reproducers only. They can only asexually reproduce. You'll find that some exceptions to that rule when you get into biology, but for us, they're only asexual reproducers. Again, they're all unicellular. all asexual reproducers. Eukaryotes, however, are both, right? They can be unicellular or multicellular, and they can produce asexually or sexually depending upon what kind of organism there are. And there are some organisms, like plants, that can produce either way. So sometimes when plants have flowers, they'll have flowers, and flowers are the sexual reproduction parts of a plant. So you can see like there's pollen from one plant pollinating another plant. And so that can create a seed with genetic diversity. But sometimes that same plant can just grow a little plant off of itself asexually. So most mammals, or all mammals, are sexual reproducers exclusively. There's some organisms up here. A lot of our unicellular protists are asexual reproducers exclusively. And then we've got that kind of interesting group of organisms that can do both. And you'll learn more about that in 7th grade as well. This is kind of a fun video. I'm not sure if you guys are going to be able to hear it on the notes, so I'm just going to show it to you after this video is finished. But this is a kind of fun example of what asexual reproduction looks like in bacteria. This is our summary, so pretty quick set of notes today. Again, our 3 domains are bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. Bacteria and archaea are all unicellular, all prokaryotic, all asexual reproducers, and each one of those 2 domains only has 1 kingdom each. So they're pretty simple. They are all or nothing domains, right? Eukarya is that really diverse domain. And so that's where we have these 4 different kingdoms, and the only thing that they really have in common is that they're all eukaryotic, right? So we have some that are multicellular, some that are unicellular, some that are asexual reproduction, some that are sexual reproduction, some that are autotrophic, some that are heterotrophic, and there's a total of 4 different kingdoms. Let me change that within that set. I did want to go back to archaea for you guys real quickly, because this is something that you're going to need to know for the test. Archaea is the newest domain, okay? So not only are they extremophiles, but they used to be combined with bacteria, which probably makes sense to you, in a domain called Monera. And so it was 1990 that they changed that into its own domain just because of some structural differences. We're going to look, when we look at our kingdoms, we'll look at the next kingdom that they're thinking about separating as well. But that's it for today. Hope it was helpful.